You know, every year can't be a great year. And this year, I did read some books that I didn't like. Now, granted, this is all subjective. Just because I didn't like a book, it doesn't make the book bad. This is just things that don't work for my own taste. But today's video, we're gonna go over my worst books of the year. I definitely didn't like some. I honestly would be interested to know if you can guess any down below. Are there any books that you expect to see on this list? I feel like I'm pretty vocal when I love a book, and I'm also pretty vocal when a book doesn't work for me. Let's start with The Visitor. This was a little short horror Christmas story that I read, and I hated this. The writing was just not it for me. I could not vibe with the writing style. It was too short. It was just all over the place. This was not a story for me in any way. It needed some work. I shouldn't have started with this one. I should not have started with this one. There's not a lot to tell you without spoiling the book. In the story, we're following essentially a diner that there's a snowstorm and a bunch of people get like snowed into this diner on Christmas, and they have a visitor, a not very nice visitor. Next on this list, we have How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. This one will be on a lot of people's best of the year list. I know a lot of people who loved this book. The first book I ever read by Grady Hendrix was the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, and that's a 5-star read for me. I loved that one. They've just gone downhill since I started reading them. I want to be in on the camp. I want to like love it. But this story specifically for me had a change of tone halfway through. We started really like grief heavy. It was a very like depressing story at the start, which I'm good with. I can handle grief horror. I actually like grief horror. But then halfway through there's just like a light switch. It becomes like this campy, over the top, ridiculous thing that I could not take seriously. It was too hard of a switch that I was like, you wanted me to take the beginning so seriously. We're having deep discussions, and then this happens, and it just did not work for me. How to Sell a Haunted House is a story about someone trying to sell their childhood house that they think is haunted, and it's wild. It's a wild time, that's for sure. Next on this list is Her Soul to Take. Again, I actually read this for BookTube Bestie last year. I read this because someone told me it was one of their best books of the year. Reading is subjective. For me, I couldn't get down with the horniness of this. I do like fantasy romance, but I'm learning that I don't like paranormal romance. I find paranormal romance, at least the ones I've picked up, tend to lean a little bit more into like horny people. There's a lot of like sex for sex, or like dreaming of sex, and I definitely am a slow burn girly. I honestly pretty much want no sexual things until we've reached at least the halfway mark. Yes, we can flirt, we can think people are hot at times, but I don't want a scene of people banging in the first 20 pages of my book. I don't want them to just like be thinking about that all the time. I am a slow burn girly through and through, and I've just learned that I find at least the ones I'm picking up aren't like that. And that's what Her Soul to Take was. I think lots of people said that they thought I'd like it because there was a plot. But for me, the plot disappeared because all it was smut. There's a scene in this book that will never leave my memory, and it's a scene I did not need to have. And if you're wondering, it's the piercing scene with the thingy-mabobble. I don't need to think about this right now. I don't like it. Next on this list is Dragon Quest by Anne McCaffrey. This is really sad for me because the first book in this series was a 5-star for me last year. I loved Dragonflight. I thought it was something really amazing to read and see all the inspiration a lot of other dragon books have taken from. The dragons were compelling and the plotline was compelling, and then we had a Dragon Quest and I was just incredibly bored the entire time, and it angered me so much that I was just so bored and didn't care at all about anything happening that I decided not to continue on with the series as a whole, because there's nothing about Dragon Quest that made me want to continue on in the series. I have heard from a lot of people that it is one of the weaker books in the series, which is sad that it kind of ruined the entire reading experience for me, but it is something that it did, and I'm really sad that I read it, to be honest. I wish I had just like skipped it. Next on this list is The Never King. Again, I don't like smut. I don't like smut for the sake of smut. This is a Peter Pan retelling. We follow our main character who gets kidnapped by the Lost Boys, and in order to escape, she decides to sleep with them all. I can't believe I read this. Oh god. That is literally what the story is. There's like a plot, I guess, except for the plot comes in at like the 70% mark and then is finished and completed by the 80% mark. So like a 10% plot is not enough plot for me, especially in a book this short. The trauma this girl is going through and she's just happy. I didn't like this. I did not like this. I didn't like this. I didn't like it. I didn't like it. We're moving on because I don't want to talk about it anymore. No shame to anyone who likes books like this. I can see why someone would like a book like this. I just know who I am as a reader is a slow burn, not a lot of smut, girly, and I'm okay with that. And I'm okay with saying I dislike books because of this, and that I get secondhand embarrassment, and that I just don't like them, and that is 100% okay. And you can still love and enjoy them, and I'm happy that you love and enjoy them. Oh god, in similar vein, I'm going to tell you that the next book on this list is The Coven by Harper L. Woods. This one did not have a lot of smut, but it just had a lot of like crude behavior and moments that were just like, why? Like there is a part in this that she's forced to take off her underwear for literally no reason. Like, no reason, just to tell us that she has no underwear on. And it just, like, made no sense to the story for this to happen. And it just, like, drove me up a wall that every second sentence was something, like, crude. It just doesn't work with me. And that's fine. It's literally fine. Everything's okay over here. I do think that this one had a cool plot underneath all of that. And if you like those things, I definitely think that this would be one to maybe pick up, because I think there was a cool magic system, a cool plot in it. However, I couldn't get past those moments. And if you can, you could enjoy this one. We're essentially following our main character, who is the last line of a witch bloodline. She's been hiding out, but when she is found out, she is forced to go to school for these witches that is like separate from the rest of the world. Secrets there that she's going to uncover and learn while sleeping with the headmaster, who is also a demon. I am sensing a theme in these worst books of the year, because the next on this list is Savage Lands, and I hate read this one. I'm not lying to you. I knew I hated this probably 50 pages in, but I decided I wanted to have a good old hate read, and I did that. And I had a fun time hate reading it. I don't want to bash this because it's definitely not a book for me. Same things. Just crude for the sense of being crude. There was a lot of just like random sexual things and terms and like moments, and people just always being like, oh, hey, I want to shag you, and like for no other reason, and just a lot of that stuff that I obviously clearly don't like. We're just following our main character who goes on raids for the humans. There was a wall set up between humans and fae, and she steals from the fae for the humans. When she gets caught, she gets sent to a prison, and bad things happen there. But really what happens there is a whole lot of sexual things. On to the next one. Thank you, next. I have one that I can tell you was not because of sexual things that I didn't like it. Immortal Longings. This one was a 5-star prediction for me, so the fact that it's on this list is really, really, really disappointing. We're following a world where the king puts on a competition every single year where people come in and they have to be the last one surviving, essentially. We follow our main character who enters into this competition because she wants to kill the king. Only once a year does the king come out of hiding, and it is to crown the winner of this competition, so it's the only way that she can get close enough to the king to kill him. The characters in this were just so lacking. There was a cool magic system in this that we never get information on. I just really felt like this was such a surface level story that I couldn't engage in, and that's why it ended up on this list, because the buzzwords in here are so high for me. So I'm really, really, really sad that I didn't love this, but sadly it did make my worst of the year list because it just fell so flat in so many things. Ugh. I'm really sad I didn't love this one. And last on this list is really going to be controversial here. Oh my god, why am I saying this out loud? Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. This is the first Sanderson that I have actively not liked, and I hope it's my last. Most Sanderson I give 5 stars, so this completely shocked me. I think if I had read this earlier on in my Sanderson journey, I could have liked it a little bit more, but knowing what I know now about Sanderson and what I come to expect from his writing, Warbreaker is very different in my opinion. Something I absolutely adore about Sanderson is his hard magic systems and how those work and the rules and stuff, and I needed more of that in Warbreaker. I felt like his magic system really suffered there, and because I went into it wanting what I want from Sanderson, I think that really hurt this story. We're following 2 princesses essentially, and one of them is married off to the king of the land next door, where she's essentially supposed to take down their nation from the inside, but she wasn't the one that was supposed to go. She wasn't the one training for it. Her older sister was. So how is she gonna do that? That's a good question. I wish that I had read it earlier on in my Sanderson journey. I think that would have helped a lot. I also sometimes wonder if I wouldn't have liked Elantris as much if I hadn't read it first. I mean, timing, right time, right choice, right mood, all of that does sometimes matter. Yeah, those are my 10 worst books of the year. I'm so happy for anyone who loves these books. Reading is about loving what you're reading. Reading is about happiness. Reading is subjective. There should be no shame in ever loving what you love. But I also think that there should be no shame in disliking what you dislike, as long as you're not like hating on the author or the book itself or the people who love it. If you're just saying this book didn't work for me, I didn't like it. I would love to know one of your worst reads of the year down below. And also if you'd just like to leave me an emoji just to say you were here, leave me a strawberry emoji. And then if you would like to connect with me on other platforms, my Bookstagram, my Book Twitter, my Goodreads, and my Patreon, all linked in the description bar below. Have yourselves an absolutely remarkable day.